Fight or flight.
Woo! What is extreme fight or flight response? Extreme fight or flight response is a physiological reaction that occurs in response to when an organism is under danger, attack, or has a threat to survival. This was first described by Walter Cannon, and his theory states that animals, including these two young men right here, react to threats with the release of hormones from the sympathetic nervous system by preparing the animal for either fighting or fleeing. How does this response work? The fight or flight response begins in the brain's amygdala, which triggers a neural response in the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus then activates two systems: the sympathetic nervous system and the adrenal cortical system. The adrenal cortical system uses the bloodstream to release hormones, whereas the sympathetic nervous system uses pathways from the body. From the sympathetic nervous system, it sends out impulses to gland and smooth muscles and activates the adrenal medulla to release epinephrine or norepinephrine into the bloodstream. These hormones can cause changes to the body, such as increase in heart rate and blood pressure. At the same time, to activate the adrenal cortical system, the hypothalamus releases corticotropin-releasing factor, CRF, into the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland, a major endocrine gland, secretes the hormone ACTH, which then moves to the bloodstream to arrive at the adrenal cortex. Here is where it activates the release of approximately 30 different hormones, including cortisol, into the bloodstream. A sudden flood of epinephrine, norepinephrine, cortisol, and many other hormones causes changes to the body that includes increased blood pressure, heart rate, blood sugars, glucose, and fats in order to supply the body with extra energy. Relaxation of lung muscles in order to allow more oxygen into the lungs. Becoming paler or flushing. Inhibition of stomach and upper intestinal action to where digestion stops or slows down. Constriction of blood vessels in many parts of the body. Dilation of blood vessels for muscles. Inhibition of the lacrimal gland responsible for tear production and salivation. Dilation of pupil to take in as much light as possible. Relaxation of bladder. Inhibition of erection, auditory exclusion, tunnel vision, loss of peripheral vision, disinhibition of spinal reflexes, and shaking. Other biological effects the extreme fight or flight response has on the body are increased blood clotting function of the body to prevent excessive blood loss in the event of an injury sustained during the response, and increased muscle tension in order to provide the body with extra speed and strength energized by adrenaline and glucose. Normal functions. Homeostasis is maintained throughout. The system responsible for this maintenance is the parasympathetic nervous system. It works hand in hand with the sympathetic nervous system. Its main function is to activate the rest response and return the body to homeostasis after the fight or flight response and the release of dozens of hormones. The system activates and utilizes the release of the neurotransmitter acetylcholine to retain back to normal functions. There is a consistent negative feedback loop back to the hypothalamus from the adrenal cortex and the adrenal medulla.
The hypothalamus signals the sympathetic nervous system, or the adrenal cortical system, which then release chemicals into the blood to determine whether the animal flights or fights. There is a consistent negative feedback loop back to the hypothalamus. And now you know all you need to know about extreme fight or flight response.